Morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Susan, and I am pleased to serve as worship associate this morning. Although the doors to our building are closed to do our part in preventing the spread of disease, we are still a vibrant congregation with open minds, spirits, and hearts. Normally, if you would like more information about FirstU, it would be available at the welcome table at the back of the pews. However, while our building is shut down because of COVID-19, you may instead contact us through email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Once again, welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And while the building is closed, staff are working remotely and are monitoring emails during usual working hours. Phone calls will be checked less regularly, so do please email for a quicker response. After this and future services for a while yet, our usual hospitality hour will be replaced by a virtual get-together on Zoom. If you would like to join us for our virtual hospitality hour, information on how to do this is available on our website, firstunitarianottawa.ca, or in our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. As we won't be seeing each other in person, it is more important than ever to sign up to receive the EUU. Check our Facebook page and our web page for notices and updates. Our online calendar is as full as ever. This morning, I welcome you into my home and the homes of our music director and our guest speakers and our director of religious exploration. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. It is beautiful to think that even though we are in separate places, protecting ourselves and others by staying away from a crowd, here we are together online, listening, connecting, and soon singing. I hope the moment finds you well. Today, I am delighted to welcome two guest speakers, Patricia Paul-Carson and Jan Andrews, both of whom are members of our congregation. Trish and Jan will reflect on their experiences, challenges, and lessons learned as co-chairs of the Syrian refugee group, which led to FirstU's sponsorship project. In 2015, there was an outpouring of concern for Syrians fleeing the civil war, galvanizing people both within and outside the congregation to come together and offer support to bring a family to safety in Canada. The steering group had no idea how generous people would be with both their financial and volunteer contributions. The sponsorship project has brought 7 families, sponsoring 3 and co-sponsoring 4 more, over 40 people in all, to safety and security in the Ottawa community. I look forward very much to hearing from Trish and Jan later in the service. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community. Welcome. We hope you come back soon. This morning's opening words are by the Reverend Deborah Falk, minister of the Unitarian Church of Calgary. Many of us at FirstU remember Deborah fondly from her time 15 years ago when she was our intern minister. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. Come on. Let us sing the Chalice Song.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day with love and truth helping lead the way.
Hi everyone, hope you're all doing great on this Sunday. The story I'm reading to you today is called EARTHDANCE. It's a book that I found in our RE library, and I hope you all enjoy it. It has really lovely images, which I'll try to share with you. All right, have a great Sunday. EARTHDANCE. Imagine you are standing tall in an empty space. Stretch your arms out wide and slowly spin around. Imagine growing taller than the trees, taller than the hills, head high in the sky. You are growing so large, so tall, no one can see all of you now. Imagine you are dancing in space even larger than the moon. Spinning around, you are round, wrapped in a quilt of bright colors. Blue flowing seas, dark green woods, and deserts of gold sand. You are twirling so gracefully, carefully, not even the sand moves as you spin. You are large and grand, and your voice is the proud roar of icebergs cracking. Waterfalls tumbling. Your whisper is a breeze murmuring through the reeds. a tiny wave lapping land. Wiggle your shoulders, and mountains tremble and quake. Shake your hair and feel wind-swept grasses tickle your face. You are streaked with roads and bridges, spotted with farms and factories. Up your hills and down your rivers, cars and ships carry people from one place to another, all places on you. You are where crickets leap, rabbits hop, and children run and run. Imagine them leaping and dancing with you as you spin. You are where people meet, talking and singing and laughing aloud. Imagine hearing them all, their voices humming as you twirl. Turn your face to the bright sun and cities wake up, yawning to morning. Behind you, cities in darkness turn on their lights, go to sleep and dream. As you spin, you bring day, then night, to everyone who calls you home. You spin around and also dance around the sun, bringing summer. Bringing winter when snowflakes touch and cover you, and people leave soft footprints on your snowy fields. You are every place people rest and the place everyone knows best. You are older than anyone, yet each day you are where new life grows, flowers bud, and babies are born. You are home to ants and lizards, fish and dragonflies, roses and redwoods. You are shelter for people who may never meet, but share one thing. You are their home. Dance slowly, spin gently, and carry them through space. May they hear your whispers, feel your strength under their feet, and treasure you. For you are home, you are precious earth. Hi again, I hope you all enjoyed that story. I just love the imagery. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Again, the name of the book was Earth Dance, and it comes from the curriculum Wonderful World. All right, wishing you a great Sunday. Bye.
Our world is one
this time in the service, we are drawn closer to the heart of love at our center and hold those both near and far, loved ones and strangers, in our hearts as we drop stones into a bowl of water to symbolize both joys and sorrows. A stone requested by Matilda, who says, "This stone is from Matilda for George. Your memory stays with me always." A stone for Kay of Unitarian House, who is home from the hospital and recovering from surgery. A stone for all that has been done to reduce the burden of COVID-19. A stone for the work against the virus that remains. Sorry, should be showing you the bowl. A stone for our public health and frontline workers. And a final stone for all the joys and sorrows that have not been mentioned this morning, but remain in our hearts and minds. Let us share a moment of stillness. The reading, a meditation on hope and love in a time of struggle, is by the Reverend Alice Anechka Nazarman. In a world so filled with brokenness and sorrow, it would be easy to lose ourselves in never-ending grief, to be choked by our outrage, to be paralyzed by the enormity of suffering, to feel our hearts squeezed tight with hopelessness. Instead, this morning, let us simply breathe together as we hold our hearts open. Breathing in as our hearts fill with compassion. Breathing out as we pray for healing in our world and in our lives. Breathing in, opening ourselves to the transforming power of love. Breathing out as we pray for peace in our world and in our lives. Breathing in as we hold hope in our hearts. Breathing out as we pray for justice in our world and in our lives. May we know our strength. May we be filled with courage. May our love flow from us into this world. Breathing in, we are the prayer. Breathing out, we are the healing. Breathing in, we are the love. Breathing out, we are the peace. Breathing in, we are the hope. Breathing out, we are the justice. May we know our strength. May we be filled with courage. May our love flow from us into this world. Amen. Blessed be. May it ever be so. It is now time to hear from our two guest speakers, Paul-Carson and Jan Andrews. Trish came to FirstU over 30 years ago when she was looking for religious education for her 3 children. She stayed to teach Sunday school for about 10 years and later became involved with providing sanctuary for Samsu Mia and for Sri Rai, and then later still helping Syrian refugees. Trish is a social worker and worked in employment equity and inter-country adoption. She's an avid cross-country skier in the winter and cottager in the summer. She thanks her lucky stars that she and her husband of 44 years can walk to the homes of her 3 now adult children and granddaughter. Jan was born and raised in the Unitarian Church and returned to FirstU in 2006 with her partner Colleen Glass, initially to sing in the choir. She quickly became involved in a number of other church activities, in addition to co-chairing the Syrian refugee group. Colleen and Jan have enjoyed 34 years together with their blended family, a son and daughter, who now live with their own young families in Italy and Victoria, BC, respectively. For many years, Jan worked as a feminist activist and social worker in Ottawa, then moved to policy work at Health Canada. She's now enjoying the slower pace of life during the pandemic, walking at Mud Lake, cycling, doing crafts, and connecting with family and friends on Zoom, as well as catching up on household projects. Trish and Jan.
Good morning. My name is Jan Andrews, and shortly you'll see Trish Paul-Carson. We've been co-chairing the Syrian refugee group for the past 4.5 years. It's been an amazing experience. We've had times of joy, reflected in some of the photos you'll see today, and despair, hope and despondency, enthusiasm and drudgery. The challenges and rewards were many, and in this talk, we want to give you some idea of what we accomplished and our lessons learned along the way.
During the summer of 2015, it was becoming increasingly apparent that the civil war in Syria was becoming intolerable for its citizens. The media depicted images of Syrians leaving in droves every day. Many people in Canada were overwhelmed when they saw the picture of a little boy who had drowned being cradled in the arms of a soldier. I personally was shocked when I saw images of thousands of people walking across the Middle East and Europe with nothing but the clothes on their back. It reminded me of photos I'd seen of World War II. I phoned Bob Stevenson, who was chair of the Refugee Committee at the time, to ask him what the congregation was doing. When he said that nothing had been organized yet, we set to work and by September called a meeting, and much to our delight, over 25 people showed up indicating that they wanted to do something. By late November, we had formed a core group of people who would take the lead together. Our first job was to raise money. And we knew, according to CUC guidelines, that we would have to have $40,000 for a family of 4. Much to our surprise, we garnered much more than $40,000 as more and more and more money kept pouring in from the congregation and also from people outside the congregation, till eventually we raised $160,000. We were also busy recruiting volunteers too, and soon we had a list with over 90 people willing to work. While this was happening, we also had over 50 calls and emails from small neighborhood groups wanting to help our help to sponsor a family. We talked to all of them and determined that we could help 5. These groups would raise their own funds and they would settle the refugees, but they needed help with the application process, the management of the donations, and They needed a co-sponsor, that is FirstU, to provide oversight in order to obtain government approval for their refugee sponsorship application. We developed a memorandum of understanding with each group to provide a framework for our relationship with them. With the funds and the volunteers and our in place and our MOUs organized, we knew we were on our way. What a time of excitement and hope.
In total, we supported 7 families to come to safety in Ottawa, over 40 people in all. We provided both financial and settlement support to the 3 families, while we co-sponsored families with 4 private groups. Families came from a variety of backgrounds, some with little education, others with more, some from small agricultural communities, others from large cities. Although we are no longer responsible for any of them because the year of legal sponsorship is long over, we have formed many strong ties. Pre-COVID, visits and social events were ongoing. All families are doing well. The children are thriving and some of the parents have secured jobs while others are living on Ontario Works benefits while still learning English and adjusting to life in Canada. Here are a few cherished memories from 3 of the team leaders. From Jane Lamb. I remember the first time I visited the family, bringing them a batch of cookies. The children gobbled them up as if they hadn't eaten in days. It was then that I realized that not only had we saved this family from bombs and political chaos, but we had also taken them out of extreme poverty and malnutrition. Now the parents do not have to worry about where their next meal is coming from or how they will educate their children. And from Karen Blakely. The AT family arrived in December 2018, and we wanted to show them how Canadians embraced winter activities. We met at a local arena to teach the 2 newcomer teenagers how to skate. We each took turns holding hands and sharing advice on how to balance, how to step and glide, and the all-important how to stop. There were lessons on courage, risk-taking, when to hold hands, and when to go it alone. The best lesson was being okay with falling down and learning how to get back up, at first with a friend's hand and then on their own. In between the grimaces and frowns, there were smiles and laughter. At the end of the first skate, a team member inspected the well-worn donated skates and decided to give his own new pair of skates to one of the teenagers. With tighter ankle support on the next outing, we saw improved skills and the beginning of their enjoyment of skating. Jane Lindsay remembers gathering outside the Canadian Tire Arena where the Algonquin College ESL 2019 graduation had just taken place, beaming from ear to ear and our hearts bursting with happiness and pride as we celebrated our family's mom's graduation, having just had her run into my arms as she came out of the building to meet us.
We faced many ethical challenges along the way. While this experience required organizing skills, and God knows it certainly required that, it caused us to pause many times to wonder how to behave ethically and morally. One of the first ethical challenges we had was literally deciding who gets on the boat. We had to choose who we were going to help, and this meant we also had to choose who we were not going to help. Let me give you an example. At the start of the project, the government was having difficulty matching refugees and sponsorship groups. So we decided that we would try and find a family ourselves. One came to our attention, and we started to write them while they were in Lebanon. We were very excited about bringing this family consisting of a mom and a dad, 2 children, and 2 grandparents. The more we engaged, the more committed we became. But as our emails continued back and forth, we learned that the dad had a security issue because he had been involved with political work promoting the downfall of the Syrian government and had been placed in prison because of it. Well, we had no objection to that. We were not sure he would get approved by the Canadian government. Immigration lawyers advised us his approval could go one way or the other, but in either way, it would take a very long time to resolve. While this was happening, we also learned the grandparents were disabled and could not walk on their own. We began to wonder if we would be able to handle two people with disabilities in a family. Eventually, the group decided not to continue with our attempt to sponsor them, but there was a great deal of discussion and angst before we made this decision. It was probably a good decision, but it broke my heart to turn away this family, particularly since the dad had put his own life on the line trying to get rid of the Assad government in Syria. This was not the only time we had to turn away people who wanted our help. It happened over and over and over again. We had limited human resources and funds, and we couldn't spread ourselves too thinly. And as we chose who we might help, I remembered what Bonnie Cappuccino of Child Haven told us when I was a volunteer for them. You cannot help everyone, just do your best with those you can.
Different values, Canadian compared to Middle Eastern, and maybe even privileged compared to poor, brought its own challenges. We think we are liberal and tolerant, but we may react with shock, frustration, or disappointment when the newcomers don't act in accordance with our values. For example, within the first few months of arriving, families wanted to purchase expensive items for their homes, large screen TVs, new sofas, etc. Two of the families were determined to buy a car within the first year of arriving. I think our cold winter didn't help. And in fact, they did, in spite of our warnings about the added costs to their budget. We had to constantly ask ourselves, at what point do we give advice or direction about their decisions, and when do we say nothing? Mostly, we decided that it was best to give them all of the available information so they could make their own informed choice. Another issue that arose in a few families was the role of women. While we wanted to respect their cultural backgrounds, we also wanted them to learn that in Canada, women have equal rights and are protected under the law. It was sometimes a very difficult balance between standing up for them and also respecting cultural norms. We had some difficult conversations and dealt with conflicts both within the families and within the volunteer teams because of different views on how to deal with issues. But through it all, we tried to maintain a caring and open dialogue with all parties involved.
We also had to decide how much help to give and when to stop. Our job was to help refugee families become self-sufficient and integrate into Canadian life. We faced questions like, do we advise volunteers not to give the families extra money when we know the following year these same families will be required to live on Ontario Works benefits? Do we run to their home every time they call with a problem, or should we let them problem solve themselves? There were more important issues too amongst the 7 families, such as how to handle family violence. Do we involve the Children's Aid? At what point do we contact the police? If we did this, how would it affect our relationship with the family? And would it prevent us from helping them in the future? These were issues that caused a great deal of discussion, and each volunteer had his or her own idea of what was appropriate. There were no easy answers, and these questions caused a lot of soul searching.
Now we'll address a few of the administrative hurdles we faced. To begin with, the application process was anything but straightforward. We initially chose to go through the government's blended visa office referred program, as we were told we could get matched with a refugee family from a list which came out every few weeks. However, there were more potential sponsors than available refugees, so it became a stiff competition with people glued to their computers on the appointed day. Just when we thought we had found a Syrian family to sponsor privately, the government came through with a family of 7. We were told that our application was successful on February 2nd, 2016, and then with 4 days' notice, they arrived on February 16th. It was a mad flurry of preparation and excitement. Fortunately, a generous congregant offered a temporary home where the family stayed for the first few months. In addition, the ground kept shifting beneath our feet. As an example, we had submitted co-sponsorship applications for private neighborhood groups through the Canadian Unitarian Council. Then the government decided that groups such as the CUC could only submit a limited number of applications. So even though ours were already complete and sitting on their desk, the CUC could not process them. That meant we had to reapply, going through a different stream using totally different and much more extensive application forms. It was stressful for all because it delayed the sponsorship applications and caused much more work.
Managing the finances with funds totaling approximately $280,000, which includes the private groups, was no mean feat for our group's treasurer as well as for the office staff. Everything was kept on a massive Excel spreadsheet, along with one sheet per family, which included all donations and expenditures verified against bank statements. Steering committee and the private groups got regular reports on the transactions. All requisitions were signed off by 2 members of the steering group and submitted to the church finance manager. We also had some personnel issues. Basically, we had to learn how to work together well as a team. Like any group, we stepped on each other's toes occasionally. Even though we had job descriptions, they were interpreted differently. It took time for each of us to find our niche, but we did, and soon we began enjoying each other's company. We had an amazing team of volunteers from both within and outside the congregation. Here's a quote from family team lead Jane Lamb. Oddly, looking at the experience 4 years later, what I remember most and what touched me most profoundly was the generosity and kindness of the volunteers. It was a huge amount of work, but everyone pitched in and did what they could to make the family happy here. I have learned much from this experience, from the kindness of strangers to the delicious taste of Syrian food. But if I were to give one piece of advice to others leading a similar project, I would say, relax. Don't expect too much of yourself or the refugees. Refugees often come from backgrounds so dissimilar from our own. They may have very little education and come from a rural background. They arrive in Canada where they're thrown in with a group of highly educated urban Westerners who want the newcomer children to turn out just like their own, educated, professional, and sophisticated. We saw many of our families struggle as they came to grips with the reality of living in a country like Canada. We are optimistic that they will continue to adapt to Canadian life and will be contributing to our country. We know from history that that is what immigrants do. We need to have faith and to give them time. But for now, we need to remember that our job was to save these families from certain death, and we did that, and that is enough. Family team lead John Saxby and Marcia Burdett have told us of a few highlights from their experience. This is what they said. Watching our family flourish as they settled into life in Ottawa, not only mom and dad, but especially the children at school and daycare, working with a support team, the best group either of us has had to work with. Everyone was competent, resourceful, and ready to help. That said, we were able to work effectively because our family was and is so capable.
This work has been a rich and rewarding experience, even though often challenging, allowing many opportunities to practice my UU principles. I learned to expect the unexpected and to practice flexibility and patience. I tried to practice loving kindness and compassion, not just for the newcomers, but also for my team members and myself. I consciously worked on trying to put myself in others' shoes and to listen with an open heart and mind. I learned that just sitting with someone having a coffee and trying to communicate without much shared language while kids played noisily in the background brought me closer to appreciating our common humanity. I felt the heartache and mixed emotions when newcomers had to leave behind their extended families who continue to face trauma, upheaval, and possible death. We also shared many moments of laughter, especially when Google Translate went awry. Times there were tears, but always a real connection was made. A memory from Kitty Slater, one of the family team leads. My memories of picking up the family at the airport in February 2016 are of 7 hesitant refugees descending the escalator to be met by our team, eager to make this family, who understood barely a word of English, feel at ease. Fast forward to a year later, when we celebrated with them their 1-year anniversary of being in Canada, and the family stood proudly in front of the congregation at FirstU, as the dad spoke in English about how much their Canadian family, the team, meant to them, and thanked all for their help over the year. Now, 4 years later, we're no longer providing the daily or weekly advice, but instead they share with us their successes and failures as good friends would do. In closing, we want to acknowledge and thank all the folks from within and outside the congregation who stepped up to help in this huge undertaking. For those who generously donated funds, to the many volunteers who often took on more than they bargained for, to our steering group treasurer who spent countless hours making sure we were practicing due diligence to honor our financial commitments. Our loving community has shown kindness, dedication, and generosity in so many ways. Together, we have brought over 40 people to safety.
And I say ditto to that. And there's one more thing I want to add, and that is a big thanks to you, Jan. None of this could have been done without you.
Thank you.
This is a piece called Welcome to the Circle by Betsy Rose. Welcome to the circle. How far have you come? Do you need some company? A candle and a song? Are you feeling weary? Tired of being strong? Welcome to the circle. It's a place where you belong. Do you have a burden that feels too much to bear? Do you have a bitterness you don't know how to share? Do you get too angry to breathe, to laugh or pray? Well, there's no one in this circle who has never felt this way. Yes, there's no one in the circle who has never felt this way. So welcome to this circle. Whatever brought you here, the valleys and the mountain tops, the muddy and the clear. I know your work is worthy. I know your heart is true. And I know that all you give away will come circling back to you. You know that all you've got to give away will come circling back to you.
Thank you, Trish and Jan, for all that you and your colleagues have done and for this morning's presentation. At this time in the service, we usually pass the baskets to accept the offering. As we cannot do that, you may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, loving one another.
We dance, we sing our song.
closing words are by the Reverend Samuel A. Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Let us sing Spirit of Life.